Back on InFocus, you may have already heard there's a pilot shortage, not just in the United States, but really across the world. And that impacts travel, supply chains, and much more. We'll talk about that with someone who's trying to impact that shortage, and that's Joe Ruiz, the interim director of SIU's School of Aviation. Joe, thanks for coming in.
Oh, it's a pleasure to see you, Jennifer.
If I say pilot shortage to you, I imagine I start to see some stress and some smoke coming out of your ears.
You know, it's a bittersweet, double-edged sword, because we want our students to have these opportunities within the aviation industry, and many of them have aspirations of becoming airline pilots. And right now, the climate is such that I've never seen in almost 30 years here as an aviation educator. Our students, I'd say at least 90% of them, have the opportunity to work for the airlines almost immediately after graduation, certainly within 2 years, once they build up their flight time. But we're also having to compete with trying to keep these folks resident within our program so that we have enough flight instructors to meet the demand. So it's a double-edged sword. It's a great opportunity for our folks, but by the same token, SIU and other collegiate aviation institutions across the country, across the world, are having to compete with the shortage of bodies and qualified personnel to fill those slots.
Now, it wasn't that long ago that we were talking about pilot burnout, that we were talking about pilots who had to fly so long and for so many years that they just couldn't take it anymore. They chose early retirement or even left the industry. But now, perhaps because of that, you're looking at a need that seems insurmountable.
It's really amazing when you look back. I think back to about 2007. And at the time, I was president of the University Aviation Association. I recall that time frame. And we were lobbying with regional airlines because at the time, they were paying their pilots something like $25 an hour, a really minimum wage, a low wage given their expertise. And they said they were having difficulty being able to fund those positions. Well, here we are now, 2023, and it's not uncommon for these folks to start off at $55,000 to $60,000 a year and then billing upwards. And then once they transition from the regional carriers to the major carriers, they're making well over six figures.
What should people, the traveling public, the people kind of outside the industry, keep in mind as they're booking flights, as they're looking at travel plans when it comes to this? Is this something that's going to continue for years?
This is going to be in place. It's basically reality. The airlines are being impacted by it. To say that there's something the flying public can look for, some indicator that the flights are more reliable than others, honestly, I think all you can do is look at the track record of cancellations associated with each individual airline. But to say that they can do anything else other to assure that they'll be able to complete their travel plans, really, this is a circumstance that's beyond their control. We're talking about supply and demand. And it's not that the airlines don't want to accommodate you. It's simply that they can't. They're having to curtail flights, limit the number of flights, cut back on flights, all sorts of things to try to address it, reducing the number of routes they typically fly because they just don't have the manpower for it.
Well, let's talk a little bit then about the preparation. As many people know, SIU's aviation program is world known. You get students from all over the globe, and it's full.
Yeah, you know, I would say that 6-7 years ago, our aviation flight student enrollment plateaued at about 200 students every semester, and that was something comfortable. Last semester, we had over 300 students in the program, and this semester we have over 270 in the program. Typically, spring is a bit lower than in the fall. But the point is, it's stretching us, and we have to be able to accommodate our students. So it's an issue that all of collegiate aviation is having to deal with because we're all taking on more and more students to meet the demand. We're increasing class sizes, for instance. It may have been limited to 25 previously. Now it might be 30 or 35 students per class. We may be offering classes on the weekend. We're doing things to try to meet the demand, but it's a struggle. It's a real challenge.
As many people might look at this, they'd say, well, you know, if someone gets a degree, they go out into their career. Aviation needs a little bit more hands-on experience. You've got to have those folks in the planes.
Yes. You know, there's a regulation that says to be an airline pilot, you have to have a total of 1,500 hours. Well, SIU has the ability to distinguish itself as a restricted airline transport pilot certified program, which reduces that 1,500 hours by 500 hours. So if you graduate from our flight program, our aviation management program, or our aviation technology program, you get that 500-hour reduction. Well, that's tremendous when you think that each hour of flight time, say on average, is about $200 an hour. Holy smokes, you're talking big money at that point. So to go from 1,500 hours to 1,000 hours is something that our kids try to aspire to, and a lot of our kids, not all of them, but a significant number, stay on as flight instructors. And not every pilot is a flight instructor. They have to be qualified for it. But they stay on as flight instructors, typically stay with us for about 2 years till they build up their 1,000 hours, and they're very transient. They're gone. They go off to the regional carriers, they go off to some other organization, and then they become airline transport pilots.
That's just talking about the people that are in the air, but there's also that whole infrastructure on the ground with maintenance and upkeep and things like that.
Well,
do you have the same issues there?
Sure, absolutely. Right now, one very reputable source of information is the Boeing Market Outlook. They come out with it annually. And one component of it is the Pilot Technician Outlook. And they forecast over the next 20 years, we're going to need over 610,000 new pilots, over 610,000 aviation technicians, and almost 900,000 cabin crew members or flight attendants. So absolutely, it runs the gamut. And we have a fairly vibrant aviation technologies program as well within the School of Aviation.
Lots of trends. Do you see things getting better? Maybe not resolving, but getting better?
I think they're going to get better because we're going to try and come up with new strategies to deal with these greater numbers of students. We're looking at possible satellite programs in different locations to try to take the burden off of our Carbondale program. But I think they're going to get better. We just have to adapt to the challenge. And it really is a challenge because it's not going to go away. So either you get on board or you get left behind. So we're going to do our best to get on board and make the necessary adjustments and try to deal with this challenge.
I imagine we'll continue talking about this well into the future. Joe,
Yes.
Thanks so much.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Jennifer. Thank you for having me.
Sure. Joe Ruiz is the Interim Director of SIU's Aviation Program. You can get more information on SIU's website, and you can find more about InFocus at our website, WSIU.org, and at our YouTube channel. I'm Jennifer Fuller. Thanks for joining us for this edition of InFocus.